My assignment was the future of transparency. I can certainly tell you about the present of transparency, right? This would be opaque in terms of a speaking content or speaking style, and this would be transparent, right? So that's the present of transparency as we understand it, is opaque and transparent, right? And if it's opaque, we don't know what I'm doing back here. We don't really know if I'm, fat or skinny or what my body language is, right? We can keep it just to this, reduce all that, the other 94% of communication that happens non-verbally, and I can be a little bit more opaque than if here. Now, the future of transparency, as I see it, would be something like, I'm behind here, and I say, well, I have to be behind here because the mic is here. And then you accept that, right? Oh, he's back there because the mic is there, right? In the future of transparency, you would know, oh, no, he's not there because the mic is there. They could have given him one of those clip-on mics. We saw someone else with a clip-on mic. He's blaming his technology for why he's here, but that's not why he's here. Why he's here is because he's choosing to use the technology in that way, or because he's too stupid to know that he could be using the technology in the other way. But chances are he knows. I don't generally believe things are broken for the most part. I think a lot of things that we think are broken are features in disguise, right, of someone else. Right? The big call that I get as a media theorist is from companies saying, we want to be more transparent, right? I got one a long time ago from a television manufacturer who said, we want to be less Saatchi and more Craigslist, right? Which was his way of saying, we want to be a transparent company. But in the first conversation I had with this man, this US television manufacturer, I found out, no, they don't manufacture televisions. They outsource that to Korea. They don't design their televisions. They outsource that to some company in San Francisco. They don't market their televisions. They outsource that to an advertising agency. Right? So what does that company do? Right? That company runs a spreadsheet, right, and outsources to different places. How can that company become transparent? They can't. Right? Being transparent would mean having windows so that we could see what's going on at that company. And if you want to have a transparent television manufacturer, you would want to be showing, this is us thinking about televisions. This is us making television. This is us designing this stuff. Right? Transparency means showing what's going on inside so that people can be attracted to what you do. And that's people, and that's the beauty of social media. That's not just people as consumers. Right? A transparent conversation doesn't happen with consumers. There's no such thing as a consumer. Right? Are you a consumer? No. On Saturday, maybe you're a consumer. On Monday, you're a fashion designer. On Wednesday, you're a parent. On Thursday, you're a cheater, whatever you are. Right? You are a human being. You're people. So when you communicate through transparency, when you are transparent, you're transparent to other people. That means to consumers, to vendors, to suppliers, to shareholders, to competitors, to employees. Right? If you are a transparent company, if you want to be a transparent company or organization, the only way you can do that is by having great stuff happening inside. Right? To be a leader in innovation, a leader in fashion, a leader in ideas, a leader in something, so that when you're transparent, people want to work for you, people want to work with you, people want to supply you, people want to buy from you, consumers want to be associated with you. Right? Even copywriters want to be writing your ad copy because they know you actually do something. Right? For me, the shift between the way things were and the way things are, from an opaque media space to a transparent media space, from a broadcast media space or even a writing media space to this net P2P interactive media space, is from opaque communication styles that were based in creating brands that had mythologies that basically covered up for the fact that you didn't want people knowing how you were making what you were making, to a nonfiction media space through which you can only communicate through facts. Right, so what I'm saying is, to make a very long history short, we went from actually making stuff and trading with each other and knowing who made our stuff to an industrial economy where stuff was made in big factories, far away, by people losing fingers and stuff that you don't want to know about. Right? We went from that, it was about 1300, we went to that until We had factories. So once we had factories over there, like poor little laborers making cookies while they lose fingers, you don't want to show that anymore, right, to your cookie consumer. So you come up with brands and brand mythologies to replace the reality. So you come up with, right, like our cookies are made by elves in a hollow tree, right? Now, no one believes that, but that's the brand, right? Keebler. You ever think where those Keebler cookies come from? They're made by these elves in a hollow tree. There's a brand mythology, right, to replace whatever is actually going on. Good or bad, we don't know. It's not transparent. In an age of the internet, right, in an age of interactive media, of peer-to-peer media, of people tweeting, right, people are not interested in tweeting brand mythologies. Right? This is a non-fiction media space. Why do you tweet? So someone else goes, ooh, he tweeted that. Ooh, she gave me this valuable tidbit, this juicy bit of gossip even. Ooh, Tiger Woods had sex with this one. Or ooh, this one, Charlie Sheen drunk drove. Or ooh, Obama has this. Or ooh, there's a rat hair in my Keebler cookie. Right? Not, did you hear what the elves did today? Right? It's not the elves, it's the cookies. If you are going to tweet something or Facebook something, if you're going to talk about something on the net, it's going to be, have you tasted this new cookie? Have you found out that they're actually using whole wheat in these cookies, that they're actually better for you? Did you hear that these cookies are being sourced in that way from that country over there and not making plastic to increase our 6 plagues? I know we're all running out to buy that 6 plagues book tonight. I was thinking that, it's like, oh my God. But that's another story. Some things I almost wanted opaque so I don't have to think about it. But I'm going to be, I have that meme is in my system now. I'm going to end up looking and finding out all 6. I'm sure it's really more like 6 million. But even with those facts, right, it's these facts that move around in a non-fiction media space, which is what a social media space is. Right, so on the surface level then, and that's all I'm really talking about, we've moved from a universe in which brand mythologies and fictions used to sell products and organizations and used to be the main form of communication that we had through our media. Moved to this other peer-to-peer media space where now we're sharing facts and ideas with one another. So we moved from a system where feedback, right, the very early levels of feedback were basically a company or a politician broadcasts a message and the feedback they get is in the form of, are people buying my thing? Are they voting for me? It's a slow feedback, right? To a peer-to-peer media system where feedback and communication are almost the same thing, right? Where things move around in such a way, in a systemic way, that you can no longer really tell the difference between signal and response, because every response is a new signal, right? So then all the people that you might talk to in organizations and businesses wanting to know, how do we communicate to our consumer? You can't communicate to anyone anymore. You can only communicate with people. Commune, come, with. Right? You communicate with people in an interactive media space. So then you look, my gosh, where's our communication strategy? Where's our mass media strategy? How do we plan? What myth do we create? What does my brand manager do? Right? Your brand manager accepts that there's no such thing as a brand manager anymore. Right? Your brand manager accepts that the company and the brand have become the same thing again. That you actually are your brand. Right? Because who's communicating what you're doing? If not your advertising company and your marketers, your customers and your employees are communicating what you're doing. Your employees are communicating what is happening in your company. It's interesting, the only place where these rules are slightly violated would be in the fashion industry. Right? And that's because in the fashion industry, your product is the myth. Right? For the most part, while in some things, you'll see a certain store or a brand or, Kenneth Cole or somebody, we're about how we're sourcing the leather and it doesn't kill the cows or something, some wonderful thing might happen. There's some of that. But for the most part, when you're buying fashion It's not, oh, I'm buying this because it was made in, Singapore by happy workers as opposed to Vietnam by unhappy workers, right? You're buying the story. So when you're putting an ad in a magazine for fashion, that's the product, right? That's the product. You are not telling me to buy a particular fashion brand by putting an ad for it. You're supporting me for having bought that, right? That's what I'm paying for, is for you to advertise me in those clothes, right? It's for you to support the myth that I'm trying to live and convey to other people. So there's a slight difference, right? Fashion is a lot more like, and it's interesting, the one place that myth went in media is pay-per-view. That really is the future of fictional media. It's not branded content on TV. I mean, even Charlie Sheen couldn't keep it up, right? I mean, that's dying, broadcast television, as a model, as a money model even. But as a successful myth conveyor, it's dying. And what's replacing it is pay TV, which is even some of the basic cable, the Mad Men kind of shows is a hybrid, but you're paying for that station. You can only get the station by paying, and HBO and Showtime even more so. It's all pay fiction. So people would rather pay for their myths directly rather than get them indirectly through these products and then pay for products. So everyone's going to pay directly. Everyone's starting to pay directly for the things they want. I want these stories. I want those products. In fashion, it becomes one and the same. Fashion is closer to buying HBO than it is to buying a hammer, right? Because it's not the robot. It's not the clothes that they're buying. It's the story behind the clothes. So they are paying for the ad. They are paying for the mythology that the designer and the company create around that so that they can wear a costume, right? So they can be in the play, so they can express in that fashion. So fashion can, not always, but fashion sometimes. I mean, maybe not, the work clothes, but fashion is its mythology. And if you understand that, it's a lot easier to get along, because then that's your product. That's what you've done. So who you choose, who you choose to represent, and the way you represent then becomes your story. It's all PR. So that aside, we're talking about the surface level of this media. All of this transparency that I'm talking about, though, is occurring on a content level. It's still the content of the media. And we're not talking about the context of the media. We're talking about this transparency, right? But not this transparency. And that's the one that I'm actually a little bit more concerned about, is that we are operating as if, oh, now we're living in this transparent universe and everything is clear and it's all fact-based and all that, without understanding the ways in which the technologies we're using are biasing everything we do anyway. That sort of Facebook argument, that Facebook is biased towards these kinds of behaviors and not towards those. That's why he sits for 20 minutes or an hour before activists are going to use something to explain, this is how Facebook works, this is the bias, this is what it does. Most people don't understand what the technologies they're using are for. And that's why they get such unpredictable results with them. It sounds ludicrous to say that, but I'll say it again. People don't know what the technologies they're using are for. So they use them and then are surprised with what happens. Right? Talk to any kid about what is Facebook for. Ask a kid, what's Facebook for? What will they tell you? Facebook is to help me make friends. Right? Go to the boardroom at Facebook and see if that's what they think Facebook. How are we going to help Johnny make friends? Is that what they're thinking? No. They're thinking, how are we going to monetize Johnny's social graph? Right? How are we going to monetize his social relationships in a way that's not going to piss him off so badly? Right? Or that's not going to make news. If you don't know what it's for, then you don't know who the customer is. Does Johnny pay to use Facebook? No. Who's paying to use Facebook? The corporations that are paying Facebook for access to social graphs. So who's Facebook's customer? Johnny is not Facebook's customer. Johnny is the product. Right? The customer, the easy way to figure out the customer of a company is who's paying the company. Right? So whoever's paying the company is the customer, and everybody else is the product that the company is selling. Right? If you don't pursue the biases of the media that you're using, you end up being the used rather than the user. You know, that's why I ended up writing this book last year called Program or Be Programmed. And everybody's saying, oh my God, you mean I have to learn programming? You know, is that what you're saying? It's like yes and no. You know, it's like saying to a person, I understand, people come to me and they'll say, well, if I have to learn to program a computer, that's ridiculous. I drive a car and I don't know how to pop the hood and fix the thing. It's like, yeah, but you know how to drive the car. I'm not talking about the difference between a driver and an auto mechanic. I'm talking about the difference between a driver and a passenger. Right? To be able to use a computer means to know how a computer basically works. It's to know what the software you're using is for. If you don't know what the software you're using is for, then you don't really understand the capability of what you're doing. You don't understand what capabilities are locked because they have to be, and what capabilities are locked because someone decided they should be. I mean, I remember the moment I had that realization was I was installing a program in, Windows 95. And when you installed a program in Windows 95, it summons this thing called the wizard to install the program. And I was like, God, why did they pick the wizard as the metaphor for the thing that's going to take my application and drag it into the applications folder for me? The wizard. It's not the helper, not the muskrat, you know, not the gerbil. It's the wizard. Because what they're saying is this is a mysterious, difficult process. No user serviceable parts inside. Hazard of electric shock. You will break this. Stay away. And let the magical wizard deal with this mysterious process for you. And thus you get further and further away from that stuff back there. We better just hire some alpha nerds to deal with, I mean, stuff that was so easy in the old days. I mean, I'm talking 1970s and 80s. Programming a computer was as easy as working a computer. It was the same thing. There was no difference. It'd be like, someone saying, like typing. Oh, but what about that part with the keys? Yeah, well, that's part of typing. It's just, you push keys. Because we get to the age where you have a person then typing for you. It's that sense of distance. So we feel like the further and further we get from the stuff back there, the easier and easier our computers are to use. They're not actually easier to use. They're just harder to program. So we stay away. And I think we stay away from the programming at our own peril. Even if we don't want to know how to program, we have to remember that programming exists. Right? You don't all have to go grab a book. I mean, really, it takes about 2 or 3 weeks to understand what programming is. That's really all it takes. Pick up a book on BASIC or Java or C++. It's not that bad. I mean, I feel sometimes when I'm telling people to learn how to program that what it must have been like, in 1100 BC, where we get the 22-letter alphabet, and people are going, look, this is going to be just 22 letters is all you need, and then the whole world of literature will open up. 22, I'm going to have to memorize these. It's okay, we made them easy. See, A, aleph, it's aleph. It looks like a bull, so you can remember it. M, mayim, water, see? These are easy. They're mnemonic devices. Each one, they tried to make it easy. But it's like 22 letters, forget it, for the priests. Right? But what happens is we always end up one media renaissance behind our elites, behind the people that understand the landscape on which things are happening. Right? We get text. And who learns to read? Did the people learn to read? No. The priests and rabbis learn to read. People gather in the town square and listen to the Word of God being read to them by their rabbi. Right? They can hear now. They can hear God the way Pharaoh did before. But the rabbis have gained the new technology. They've gained the new media capability. Flash forward another couple of thousand years. We get the printing press. Wonderful. Does that lead to a world of writers? No, the printing press, we get a world of readers. We get basic literacy so we can read, but the actual writing and the use of the printing press is strictly controlled. And if you had a printing press operating in France or England against, not in the control of the court, they'd kill you. They'd burn it down and kill you. So we had, again, we gained the capability of the text era, while a new elite gained the ability of the printing press. And now, finally, we get computers and the internet. And what happens? We gain the ability to write. Right? We write our blogs, we write our tweets, we write our updates. Right? So now we've gained the great 12th century capability of the printing press. while a new elite understands that there's something under that they're actually making the landscape on which this communication is happening, and thus biasing the kinds of communication we can have. So for me, and I'll end with this, the future of transparency will be the moment that we decide to learn how that landscape works, to learn what that bias is, right? And see that as transparently as we can now see the content. Because when you can only see the content transparently, but don't understand that that content and the way that content passes around between people is utterly shaped and pre-configured by mostly companies that are circumscribing all this activity within programs beyond our range of seeing, right? We end up much less the masters of our agency, and much more the kind of the passive respondents to the commands of others. Okay, thanks a lot.